Hello and welcome to another episode of today's GK. I am Pooja Divedi, and in this segment we bring to you objective questions on a daily basis to help you crack prelims. So let's begin with the practice question of the last segment. Consider the following statements on World Organization for Animal Health. It is a recognized and a referred organization by the World Health Organization. India is a member country and it is headquartered in Paris, France. So we have to select the correct statement. If we talk about World Organization for Animal Health, yes, it is recognized and a referenced organization, but not by World Health Organization, rather by World Trade Organization. So the first statement stands incorrect. The second statement is correct, that India is a member country and it is headquartered in Paris, France. So the correct answer to this question would be option B, that is 2 and 3 only. The OIE is an intergovernmental organization responsible for improving animal health worldwide. It is recognized as a reference organization by WTO. In 2018, it had a total of 182 member countries. India is a member country. It is headquartered in Paris, France. Let's move ahead and talk about the next question. Which of the following ensures the independence of the judiciary? Security of tenure. Salaries and allowances of the judges are fixed and not subject to the vote of the legislature. No discussion in the legislature with respect to the conduct of any judge of the Supreme Court or a High Court in the discharge of his duties. So we have to select the correct answer, but pardon me, we have a fourth statement as well. Both the Supreme Court and the High Court have the power to punish any person for their contempt. So let's look at the statements one by one. Yes. Until and unless there is a security of tenure, how will be there any kind of independence for the judges? If they are secure in their tenure, they will of course make any decision free of any intervention from the executive or the legislature. So the first statement is correct. Security of tenure is there. And salaries and allowances, of course, if a judge doesn't pass any judgment which is liked by the executive, their payment could be reduced. So in order to preserve independence here, the second statement is also correct. Third, no discussion in the legislature is also there. This is also to ensure independence, right? And the fourth one, that both the Supreme Court and the High Court, they have the power to punish for their own contempt, is also correct. So the correct answer to this question would be option D, 1, 2, 3 and 4. The Constitution of India ensures the independence of the judiciary. Once appointed, the judges cannot be removed from the office except by order of the president, and that too on the ground of proven misbehavior and incapacity. So just keep this thing in mind, that a judge of the Supreme Court or a High Court, they can be removed on the basis of proved misbehavior and incapacity. Okay? The salaries and allowances of the judges are fixed and not subject to the vote of the legislature. Powers and jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. Parliament can only add to the powers and jurisdiction of the Supreme Court but cannot curtail them. No discussion in the legislature of the state with respect to the conduct of any judge, the High Court or any High Court in the discharge of his duties. But the Supreme Court and the High Court have the power to punish any person for their contempt. Moving on, consider the following statements regarding Representation of the People's Act 1951. The Act mandates that a by-election for any vacancy should be held within 6 months of that vacancy arising, provided the remainder of the term is not less than 1 year. The Act bars a by-election when the remaining term of the Assembly is less than 1 year. So what do? We have to look at the third statement as well. By-election may not be held if the Election Commission of India and the centre feels that holding the by-election is difficult. So if we talk about the statements, the first statement is definitely correct, that the Act mandates that a by-election for any vacancy should be held within 6 months of the vacancy arising, provided remainder of the term is not less than 1 year. Okay, this one is correct. The second statement is incorrect. Why? Because the Act bars a by-election when the remaining term, it's not there. The Act doesn't bar it. Okay, so there is no bar here. The third statement, although, is correct, because by-election may not be held if the Election Commission of India and the centre are feeling that it is very difficult and not worthy of holding an election, a by-election basically. It's difficult. Okay, so the correct answer to this question would be option B. The Representation of the People's Act 1951 mandates that a by-poll for any vacancy should be held within 6 months of the vacancy arising, provided that the remainder of the term is not less than 1 year, or the ECI and the centre do not certify that holding that by-poll in that time frame is difficult. The Act does not bar a by-poll even when the remaining term of the Assembly is less than 1 year, though it becomes optional in that case. Moving ahead, consider the following statements regarding Nipun Bharat Mission. It has been launched under the aegis of Samagra Shiksha scheme. It focuses on providing access and retaining children in foundational years of schooling. So we have to select the correct statement. Yes, Nipun Bharat Mission. It has been launched under the aegis of Samagra Shiksha scheme. And yes, it focuses on providing access and retaining. Retaining means not making the pupils to drop out of the classes. So the second statement is also correct. The correct answer would be option C, both 1 and 2. The Union Education Minister launched the National Initiative for Proficiency in Reading with Understanding and Numeracy to ensure that every child in the country attains foundational literacy and numeracy by the end of grade 2026, end of grade 3, 2026 to 27. The mission planned as per the new education policy, National Education Policy, has been launched under the aegis of the centrally sponsored scheme of Samagra Shiksha. Also, it will focus on providing access and retaining children in foundational years of schooling, teacher capacity building, development of high quality and diversified student and teacher resources, and tracking each child's progress in achieving learning outcomes. Moving on, consider the following sentences. For the first time, a moon forming region around a planet beyond our solar system has been spotted around one of 2 newborn planets seen orbiting a young star called PDS 70. It is called a circumplanetary disk, and it is from these that moons are born. So we have to select the correct statement. Both these statements are correct. The correct answer would be option C, both 1 and 2. Recently, scientists for the first time have spotted a moon-forming region around a planet beyond our solar system, a Jupiter-like world surrounded by a disk of gas and dust, massive enough that it could spawn 3 moons the size of one orbiting Earth. The researchers used the ALMA observatory in Chile's Atacama Desert to detect the disk of swirling materials accumulating around one of 2 newborn planets seen orbiting a young star called PDS 70, located a relatively close 370 light years from the Earth. It is called a circumplanetary disk, and it is from these that moons are born. Moving ahead, consider the following sentences about ARMEX. It is a military exercise between Indian Army and Armenian Army, and the ARMEX 21 was conducted in the mountain ranges of Himalayan region. We have to select the correct statement. ARMEX is an exercise that is under the Ministry of Defense. It's to stimulate the Indian Army's skills in the army basically. So the first statement is incorrect. The second statement is correct, that it was conducted in the mountain ranges of Himalayan region. So the correct answer would be option B, 2 only. And Union Defense Minister flagged in the Indian Army skiing expedition ARMEX 21 to simulate and enhance the army's skill in the mountainous region. And in New Delhi on 23rd, 2021 it happened. It was conducted in the mountain ranges of the Himalayan region to promote the adventure activity in the country and the Indian Army. Green Sohra, a forestation campaign was launched in. So Green Sohra forestation campaign was launched in Meghalaya. The correct answer would be option B. Let's move on to the explanation. On the second day of his Meghalaya visit, the Union Home Minister launched the Green Sohra forestation campaign at Sohra, Cherrapunji. He also inaugurated the Greater Sohra water supply scheme. Moving on, consider the following statements regarding Buddha Purnima. This is popularly known as the day of first turning of the wheels and is the most important day of observance for Buddhists, and the day marks the establishment of the Sangha on a new moon day of the month of Asad. And here we have to select the correct answer. So if we talk about Buddha Purnima, Purnima means full moon. So here it should not be new moon, right? The day marks the establishment of the Sangha on a full moon day and not new moon. Second statement is incorrect. The first statement here is saying that this is popularly known as the day of the first turning of the wheels of Dharma. This is correct. This part is correct. And it is the second most important day after Vesak Purnima. So the first statement and the second statement, both these statements are incorrect. So the correct answer would be option D, neither 1 nor 2. India celebrated its Buddhist heritage with the President and Prime Minister of India extending greetings of Asad Purnima and Guru Purnima to Indians and the global Buddhist community. The day marks the establishment of the Sangha on a full moon day of the month of Asad in the Indian sun calendar at Deer Park near Varanasi. Moving on, this is also known as the day of the first turning of the wheels of Dharma and is the second most important day of observance for the Buddhists after Vesak Purnima. Okay, moving on. Consider the following statements with respect to Industrial Relations Code Bill 2020. It has raised the threshold for the requirement of a standing order to over 200 workers, which implies that industrial establishments with up to 200 workers will not be required to furnish a standing order. It also introduces new conditions for carrying out a legal strike, but the time period for arbitration proceedings has not been included. We have to select the incorrect statement. So if we talk about Indian Relations Code Bill, it has raised the threshold for the requirement of a standing order to over 300 workers and not 200. Okay, so the first statement is incorrect. The second statement, on the other hand, it also introduces new conditions for carrying out a legal strike, but the time period for arbitration proceedings has not been included. This is incorrect because it has been included, the arbitration time period. So none of them being correct. The correct answer would be option C, both 1 and 2. Industrial Relations Code Bill 2020 has raised the threshold for the requirement of a standing order to over 300 workers, which implies that industrial establishments with up to 300 workers will not be required to furnish a standing order. Industrial Employment Standing Orders Act of 1946 makes it obligatory for employers of an industrial establishment where 100 or more workers are employed to clearly define the conditions of employment and rules of conduct for workers by way of standing orders, services rules, and to make them known to the workmen employed. It also introduces new conditions for carrying out legal strike, this new one, and the code bill I'm talking about here. The time period for arbitration proceedings has been included in the conditions for workers before going on a legal strike as against the time for conciliation at present. So here you have to keep one thing in mind, that if we talk about the Industrial Employment Act of 1946, there was a requirement of 100 employees and 100 or more employees or workers, but now it is for 300 according to the code bill. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Consider the following sentences about the Indian Science, Technology and Engineering Facilities Map. It is the national web portal for sharing research and development facilities that were formally launched in January 2020. It is an initiative of the Ministry of Science and Tech. So we have to select the correct statement. It is not the initiative of Ministry of Science and Tech, but Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India. Second statement is incorrect. The first one is correct, that it is the national web portal for sharing research and development facilities that were formally launched in January 2020. So only the first one being correct. The correct answer is option A1 only. iSTEM. Recently, the Government of India has given 5 years extension of the iSTEM project for 5 years until 2026 and enters its second phase with added features. The Indian Science, Technology and Engineering Facilities Map, the national web portal for sharing R&D facilities, was formally launched in January 2020 by the Honorable Prime Minister of India, and it is an initiative of the Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India under the aegis of Prime Minister Science, Technology and Innovation Advisory Council. Moving ahead, consider the following statements about Ramappa Temple. The temple was constructed in 1213 AD during the Kakatiya Empire by Recharla Rudra, a general of Kakatiya King Ganpati Dev. The temple was named after Ramappa, the chief priest. One European traveler had remarked that the temple was the brightest star in the galaxy of medieval temples of the Deccan. So we have to select the correct statement. Yes, Ramappa Temple, India gets its 39th UNESCO World Heritage Site, which is the Ramappa Temple in Telangana. And yes, it was constructed in 1213 AD during the Kakatiya Empire by Recharla Rudra, a general of the Kakatiya King Ganpati Dev. The temple was not named after Ramappa, the chief priest. He was a Ramappa person named Ramappa was there, but he was not the chief priest, but the chief sculptor. Now this probably is the only temple in the world, in the country, that is named after its sculptor. So, the second statement is incorrect because the temple, yes, was named after Ramappa, the chief sculptor. And the third statement is correct, that a European traveler remarked that the temple was the brightest star in the galaxy of medieval temples of the Deccan. So, we have to select the correct answer now. So, the correct answer would be option C, 1 and 3 only. Telangana's Ramappa temple has been conferred with a World Heritage inscription recently, making it the 39th World Heritage Site of India. The decision was taken at the 44th session of the World Heritage Committee of UNESCO. Ramappa Temple was India's only nomination for the UNESCO World Heritage Site tag for the year 2019. The temple was constructed in 1213 AD. We have discussed this, so we shall skip it. And the presiding deity of the temple is Ramalingaswara Swami. The temple was named after Ramappa, the chief sculptor, and this is probably the only temple in the country to be known by the name of its sculptor. It is said that the temple is built with bricks that are so light that they can float on water. The brick was believed to be made spongy using something like sawdust. And European merchants and travelers were mesmerized by the beauty of the temple, and one such traveler had remarked that the temple was the brightest star in the galaxy of medieval temples of Deccan. Moving on, consider the following sentences about the census. Every census in independent India from 1951 to 2011 has published data not only on scheduled castes and scheduled tribes but also on other castes. In 1941, caste-based data was collected but not published. The Mandal Commission estimated the OBC population at 52%. So we have to select the correct statement or statements. So I hope you have understood this entire segment. You found it very informative. That's it for today. Tomorrow we shall meet again with another segment. Until then, stay updated and thank you so much for watching.